You're listening to Better Live Than Dead.
Welcome, every single human being in the podcast land, to the Better Live Than Dead Extracast. I don't know what number it is. We can make up a number if we want to.
69.
It can be number 69. I knew you were going to say that. Better Live Than Dead Extracast number 69, tentatively titled The Nicest Podcast We've Ever Done. I am Ryan Wolfe, at Wolfe BLTD on Twitter, joined today by my buddy, my partner in crime, Brayton Wilson, at BJ Wilson, WGR on Twitter. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful Saturday out, sunny. I'm inside, and you know, it's a great day to talk sports.
It's a spring day, but it feels like a summer day. It's going to be a summer weekend. They're talking mid 90s today and tomorrow. Good Lord, man. We got to get this podcast working so we can get outside and go get our tanning on or whatever we're doing outside. I don't know. Whatever normal white males do outside.
Sunburn. That's the answer.
I was going to actually go with the be shitty to other human beings, but sunburn is also a very valid option. So we've got a few days. I mean, we've got less than a week to the NHL Draft, which is taking place in Buffalo, New York. If you slept under a rock, welcome back. It's really cool to go down. I was down at Canal Side a couple days ago on Thursday to see Frank Turner, which I told you before was fantastic. First Canal Side concert, if you get a chance, total tangent here, go see a concert at Canal Side. It's fantastic. They really need to build the venue down there, but we're here to talk hockey, not talk about building Buffalo, because we could get really mad about that stuff. So anyways, we'll get back to the hockey talk here. But the draft is less than a week away. The Buffalo Sabres really, at this point, stand in a position of power. With the 8th overall pick, they can, I almost would say, if not freely move around, because of the pick that they hold as well as the ammunition that they have to make that pick nicer. But the first thing I want to talk about, Brayton, we saw something come across the board on Friday. I think it was Friday. Yeah, it was Friday morning. Yeah. An Edmonton media member tweeted out that the Edmonton Oilers were interested in Zach Bogosian, which is interesting for a myriad of different reasons, most of which we will talk about here in just a moment. But Edmonton is interested in Bogosian, reportedly a Plan B option. And then Jim Matheson, another Edmonton guy who's usually pretty spot on with what he says, threw out maybe Jordan Eberle for Zach Bogosian. And now he could have just be throwing, crap at a wall to see if it sticks. But that perked up the ears of a lot of people, because it's scratch your back to scratch my back, essentially. The Buffalo Sabres would get a right winger that they need, who can score. He scores, more than 20 goals a season on average. He's got a couple years left on his deal, and then the Oilers would get a very good defenseman that they need. I mean, we know Zach Bogosian's flaws and his positives and his negatives at this point. But first off, the first question I just have for you is that a deal that interests you? First off, and is that a deal that you would pull the trigger on?
I think that would be a deal that would interest me very much so. I mean, Zach Bogosian last year, of course, he started the year hurt, and then when he came back, he was not good. We were all thinking, oh, great, here we go. Zach Bogosian again, not playing like he was. I mean, playing like he was in Winnipeg, where, he was inconsistent with his play. I mean, and then as the season went on, he played better. He started to find his groove. He started skating really well. He started, hitting guys and shooting the puck more. And towards the end of the year, we're all thinking, wow, this is hopefully we get this Zach Bogosian every game for the rest of his tenure here, because he might be a good option. But then when I saw that trade rumor come down, I'm thinking, okay, all right. I mean, Zach Bogosian, yeah, he's got a no movement clause, which would be, not a good thing for the expansion draft, because that's one more asset we'd have to hold instead of, holding maybe another defenseman that's maybe more of a need to hold. But with Bogosian and trading him to Edmonton, I mean, Edmonton, they need help on the blue line. I know that they're depth of, I think, right-handed defensemen is not great. So if they added another right-handed defenseman like Bogosian, that would probably help them out a lot. And then, they're trading away a guy like Jordan Eberle, who's been rumored to be traded forever. But, I think there needs to be another piece or two involved in that trade if it were to happen. But right now, to me, that just seems really, really juicy, like a really good, juicy trade there, because Buffalo upgrades by getting a scoring winger, which they've needed for a long time. But the only problem is that Eberle has had issues staying healthy, sort of like Bogosian. So I would still, though, I'd still be very intrigued and, hearing more about what this trade could mean for both sides.
Yeah, looking at, we've heard a lot of people discuss a different amount of rumors. Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the 4th overall pick, the 8th overall pick, prospects, players on the Sabres. Some people have I don't know if it's jokingly or seriously mentioned maybe trading like Sam Reinhart for Taylor Hall, which never ever would I do that. But so I'm looking at Jordan Eberle on Twitter, or on Google image search, because I believe, he's the guy with the really messed up teeth.
Eberle?
Yeah, he's got really, really, really screwed up teeth.
Oh,
like,
I don't think it affects his hockey play.
No, it actually makes him a better hockey player. Yes, but I would think, because he hasn't done anything about it. But this is what I worry about, Brayton. What do his teeth look like? Yeah, with Jordan Eberle, because the thing is, they're still trying to figure out the top 6. Mm-hmm. Where Reinhardt's going to play, where Eichel's going to play. We've got a pretty good idea that Eichel and Reinhardt are starting the year on a line together, and Kane and O'Reilly are starting together on a line.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you need to fill? Is Tyler Ennis your top trade bait? We've already ad nauseum, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here in just a moment. He's trade bait in our both of our eyes, unless something has changed and you haven't told me. But you fill one of those roles. You can kind of parts and pieces and figure it out, but at some point in time, you can't be trying to play guys like Brian Gianton in your top 6 if you want to make the playoffs. They were close enough last season to the playoffs where if they go out and get a guy like Jordan Eberle or Kyle Okposo, I know those are kind of two different. They're in two different departments, but if you go add a guy who can score, if you add a 20-plus goal scorer on average to the top 6, playing on a line with Eichel and Reinhart or Kane and O'Reilly, your team is going to get better. And that's right now, the Buffalo Sabres are looking for more consistency. We saw that a little last year where they kind of fell on hard times and, they couldn't buy a goal. But I certainly think you need to add a guy like Eberle or like Okposo. We'll talk about Okposo here shortly. But on the Eberle talks, at this point in time, with Tim Murray's blazing guns, essentially, it's hard to not think that they'll make a big deal. And since really the season has ended, it's Edmonton, how Peter Chiarelli has been talking about what he wants to do this offseason. It makes a lot of sense. And, if you go out and trade Zach Bogosian, like say, for instance, they do Eberle for Bogosian straight up. Cool. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm a fan of that is because I've been seeing a lot of mock-ups for Las Vegas's team and the expansion draft, and I realize that a lot of people think that the Sabres are going to let Jake McCabe walk. And I would honestly, long-term, would rather have Jake McCabe over Zach Bogosian. First off, he's younger. First off, I think he's going to end up being a better defenseman than Zach Bogosian. Mm-hmm. But we know what Zach Bogosian can do. And we all found out real quick that the Buffalo Sabres need to go out and get a guy like we talked about a couple months ago, like Alex Goligoski, which will, again, I'm like throwing so many teasers out here and so many names, but we'll get to all these guys shortly. But a guy like Alex Goligoski to play with Rasmus Ristolainen to take some pressure off of Bogosian, move Bogosian down to the second pairing, because we've all kind of come to the conclusion that Bogosian's a good guy if he plays, second line minutes. If he plays a stronger second line, he can be a more effective player for the Buffalo Sabres. But if you're putting him on that top pairing with Ristolainen, he can't match up well against top teams' lines, but lesser talent, he's fine. And the thing is I feel like the Buffalo Sabres realize that, but now they have to go do something about it. And they have the ability to do something about that. I mean, to move over real quick to kind of a trade talk, you could maybe try to pull off an Eberle for Bogosian deal, and if you keep the 8th pick, you can go out and draft a defenseman at number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can take that pick and patch the pick up with a Foligno, a Gergensen, an Ennis, and go to Anaheim. Because the thing is, we've been talking, me and Brayton, both among others, have been, where there's smoke, there's fire. And Anaheim continually keeps throwing out there that they're going to trade somebody. So it's not BS. We're not saying this because we want the Sabres to go out and, trade Nick Delorier for Sidney Crosby or something. This is legit. Like there is something going on in Anaheim. They need to purge a defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it.
No, absolutely.
So you take the assets you have, and you go out and you go get that number 1 defenseman. Yeah, if you get rid of Bogosian, there's a hole there, but you've got guys like Mark Pysyk, like Jake McCabe, who are ready to step up and have a bigger role.
Don't forget Casey Nelson, who's been highly regarded among many.
I still think that he's going to start the next season in Rochester, but then again, crazier things have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Nelson showed that he can play just as well as a guy like Mark Pysyk. And, you look at the stats on the ice and you look at the analytics, they kind of match up really well evenly with one another. I just think that Casey Nelson needs to bulk up a little bit, and I think a little time in Rochester wouldn't do any harm to him.
So if we're talking trades here, what do you think the best option is for the Buffalo Sabres?
I mean,
improving defensively, improving offensively.
I mean, trading a guy like Zach Bogosian would certainly, garner some attention, garner some sort of return. I mean, if you were to trade Bogosian to Edmonton for Eberle, I mean, it seems like that Buffalo would have to give up a little bit more than just Bogosian in return. Maybe Bogosian and a couple of picks, maybe Bogosian, a prospect and a pick. It's really tough to tell what, who.
If nothing else, I mean, just the fact that Bogosian is owed more money over more years at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Jordan Eberle's got 3 more years left on his contract. I just had it up here, and I don't know.
I think it's like 3 at 6 or
3 at 6. Yep, $3 million. So 3 more years, $6 million per year. And Bogosian's got a contract until what, 21, 22? Something like that?
It's way too long. It's like 5 years, I think.
Yeah, and that's just crazy. But I mean, a guy like Bogosian would certainly help Edmonton on the blue line. He's a former, top 5 pick. He's got size. He's got really good competitive grit. He can shoot the puck. He can be a good 2-way defenseman for a team like Edmonton, who's just been terrible on defense for years. And why not address the defensive issues by going out and acquiring a guy like Bogosian? And while you said earlier, yeah, he might not be a top 2 defenseman, but he's certainly a 3-4 defenseman at best. And Edmonton needs that at least right now, where, they're obviously looking to get a top pair defenseman. They need that. That is their top priority. But I mean, to compensate that, you can trade for a guy like Bogosian, who's a good 3-4. He could complement a guy like Andrej Sekera, who's another guy that's not a good top 2 defenseman, but he's a good 3, 4, 5, 6 defenseman. And if you put Sekera and Bogosian on a pairing together, that might be a really nice fit for Edmonton. So a trade like that would probably work. I mean, Buffalo would have to give up probably more than just Bogosian, but I mean, if you can go out and acquire a guy like Jordan Eberle, who scored 34 goals in a season, and he's also scored, 24 or better the past 3 years, I would absolutely make that deal.
On a bad Edmonton team.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly think that, again, to the impending, and we'll know more about it this week, the impending expansion draft. Mm-hmm. That plays a big factor into this offseason as well, because if the Sabres don't feel like they want to protect a guy, Because another expansion, another rumored, or another not rumored, just another mock expansion draft had the Sabres losing Marcus Foligno to Las Vegas, which again, okay, but it's almost, to me, it almost seems as if they may go, okay, so we want to protect, these 8 guys, so let's take these other guys and trade them for something of value right now while we can, because first and second year players will likely be shielded from being picked up, and then you have a certain amount of players that you can also shield as well. So it's strategy right at this point, which is so much fun to bear witness to, because last time an expansion draft happened, I wasn't a hockey fan. I was 9 years old, so it's exciting. It's exciting to watch happen and to see Tim Murray, like the mad scientist he is, at work making things happen. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this all play out. And I would like to think that when the draft is over and when free agency kicks in, that the Buffalo Sabres will be a playoff team. Because you don't want to build a team specifically like a Stanley Cup champion, but if you're looking to be like the Pittsburgh Penguins, how they won the Cup, you just need a lot of depth. A lot of very talented depth. And maybe going out because I don't think Tim Murray is going to go ridiculously crazy in free agency. Maybe get a guy here, get a guy there, but you got to think, if it's not Stamkos, it's Okposo, and it's crazy to think that we're thinking that way, that by this time next month, the Sabres could be with, have an Anaheim defenseman and Kyle Okposo or Steven Stamkos on their team. And that's the bare minimum. That's what we're expecting to happen. That's crazy.
Let's remember, there's another name out there that the Sabres could have a chance at grabbing, and that's Jimmy Vesey.
Is it Vesey or is it Vesey?
Vesey.
So he likes Jack Eichel a lot, and that would be nice to have.
He's friends with Jack Eichel. He's playing in a summer league in Boston with Jack Eichel on the same team. And more and more people are speculating now, because all we can do is speculate at this point until August 15th, when VC officially becomes an unrestricted free agent. But there's a lot of speculation that VC could be going to Buffalo instead of over his hometown team in Boston, or a team that his father works for and his brother's a prospect for in Toronto. I think that Jimmy VC definitely intrigues a lot of people, especially here in Buffalo, because of the fact that he's best friends with Jack Eichel, and especially because of the fact that both of them, they were Hobey Baker candidates when Eichel won, and then VC won last year. I'm kind of excited more towards August 15th now when VC becomes a free agent officially, because I'm more intrigued on where he's going to go, because VC, he's got good size. He plays a really competitive game, and he's another one of those type of players where, you can stick him out on the ice in the last minute or so of the game, and he's so clutch. Put him and Jack Eichel on the ice together, and I think those two would be completely unstoppable. Not only that, but if you put them on a line with Eichel and Sam Reinhart, oh my God, look out.
I that's one thing I'm super excited about this year is we saw how well Eichel and Reinhart developed together last year and how they got better as the season went on. I'm excited to see them play with talent, more talent on their line, and just to see what happens, because this could be something fun to watch for the next decade, these two players together. And that's what I'm freaking out about, because I just can't fathom it at this point. The Sabres have gotten better, we know that, but it's sometimes it's hard for me to process how good the Sabres have gotten, how quick they've gotten this good.
I do have to say though, just imagine what will happen if Jimmy Vesey comes to Buffalo. Nashville's got to be just like, how the heck did you get him? They're going to come after Buffalo, saying that they tainted the process, saying that, they used Jack Eichel as a recruiting piece to bring Jimmy Vesey here. They must have, told him, get Vesey to convince, or get Vesey to convince Vesey to come to Buffalo and play for us for years to come. It's just going to be, whoever signs VC, there's going to be a whirlwind of speculation and a whirlwind of allegations being thrown at that team, saying, "Oh, well, you tarnish the whole process and everything." I mean, it's just going to be incredible when VC makes his decision what Nashville's going to do.
That's, you know what we call that, Brayton?
VC Gate?
Butt hurt.
Butt hurt.
That's major butt hurt. You lost a really good player because your organization is not good. I mean, they're okay. They're okay, but they're obviously
they did go to Game 7 in the Western Conference semifinals this year. So I mean, they're not.
This is me doing the wanking motion, Brayton. So at this point, I mean, with trades, I don't. Just to kind of wrap up the whole trade part of this podcast here, I don't think we're going to see anything outrageous. I think it'll be depth signings. I think the depth acquiring will probably happen at free agency, or they'll stick with what they've got. I think trades will probably be either a top 6 forward or a defenseman or both. But I don't think the only way you're going to get a top 2 defenseman is via a trade at this point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's so difficult to acquire a top pick through the draft or a top defenseman through the draft, just because unless you're picking number 1 like Florida did when they drafted Aaron Ekblad, I mean, he was guaranteed to basically become a number 1 defenseman. With this year's draft, we have no idea where Olli Juolevi, where Mikhail Sergachev, where Jacob Chikrin are going to fall when they when they reach their full potential in the NHL. I mean, each of them are projected to be top 3 defensemen, but I mean, for the Sabres right now, Rasmus Ristolainen is arguably the number 1 defenseman moving forward. There's no doubt that he will be looked as the franchise defenseman, like a Shea Weber for Nashville for years. Now it's all about acquiring a guy like a Roman Josi for Nashville, that number 2 defenseman to complement your top defenseman very, very nicely. And I think that, the trade route is the one that's going to make the biggest impact right away. However, drafting a guy, I mean, you can draft him and then see where he ends up 2 or 3 years down the road. But I don't think Tim Murray's willing to wait 2 or 3 more years. Maybe you draft one of those 3 guys. However, I mean, again, you have to wait. But I think Tim Murray is ready to go. He wants to win now. I think this is the make or break offseason for Tim Murray as to, okay, can he go out, make a trade, sign players, or bring players in, develop players that can make this team a playoff team now? Or are we going to have to wait another season of no playoffs and wait to see what happens after the expansion draft? And then, I mean, things are just coming up fast here. Many questions are going to be thrown out there. Many speculations are going to come about. But right now, let's just get to the draft already. I just want to see some sort of movement, trades, something. Yeah. I'm excited.
Well, the one thing I did want to ask you was about the draft, but because you mentioned some movement, I want to discuss that real quick. An often speculated move at the last trade deadline. I mean, I know Brayton, me and you spent countless hours talking about it. If you can get Teravainen, pick up, if you can take Bickle and get Teravainen, do it. Chicago finally pulls the trigger, deals Teuvo Teravainen and Brian Bickle to Carolina. Mm-hmm. And kind of shockingly, because it's one of those things where, again, like I said, Brayton, we talked about it ad nauseum. Rumors, everything. We've seen it all at this point. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Chicago wouldn't do that. They've done everything else. They won't do that. They're not that desperate. And then they pull the trigger. Now, is that at that price? Do you think that? Do you think there's a different reason why Tim Murray wouldn't have pulled the trigger on that deal?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, when I first heard that deal go down, I'm thinking Chicago really just gave up Teuvo Teravainen in a trade with Brian Bickle to Carolina. But I'm still scratching my head with this because Brian Bickle's only got 1 year left on his contract. I mean, he's likely going to play in Carolina this year. I just, to give up Teravainen though, just completely blows my mind. He's one of your young players in the franchise that's playing in the NHL right now. And after him, I mean, who else is in your organization that could be ready to step up just like Teravainen has? I just am completely baffled. Not only that, but I mean, they've traded away the first overall pick in the past couple of drafts to acquire a guy like Antoine Vermette. And last year they just reacquired Andrew Ladd. But I mean, Chicago, they might be digging themselves a little bit of a hole here. I think, they're still a good team. They'll make the playoffs, but their crop of young talent is not there.
Yeah, they're going to have to deal Patrick Kane here sometime soon. That's my hot take for the day, because at this point, I mean, you deal a guy like Patrick Kane, you keep Jonathan Taves, he's your heart and soul of that team. I know Kane is probably a better player points-wise, but he's a piece of shit human, so I guess it equals itself out there. But you deal him, and then you can restock the system how you see fit. But yeah, Chicago's done a very bad job the past couple years. They've gotten very trigger-happy and just done some things that, hey, maybe it's not your year. Maybe you shouldn't try to make it your year, and they still try to, and then it doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at
Andrew Ladd. Marco Dano is going to be a fantastic hockey player, and Andrew Ladd is not signing in Chicago again.
No, he's becoming a free agent on July 1st because Chicago just doesn't have the cap space to re-sign him. But I mean, you re-sign a guy like Artem Anisimov to a long-term deal for $4.55 million. Is he worth that? I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he can be a nice offensive piece for you, but I don't know if he's worth that much right now. Marcus Kruger, he's a nice third, fourth line center, and you're paying him $3.8083 million per year for the next 3 years. I mean, and then you've also got to re-sign a guy like Andrew Shaw, who's going to command even more money than Artem Anisimov. He's probably going to command $5.5 million, and that's going to be more than Marian Hossa is getting paid.
Yeah, they're going to back up the Brinks truck for Andrew Shaw, and it's going to become the next Brian Bickle. You can take that one to the bank right there.
I mean, how much longer are you going to ride on these young kids that you're not paying anything for? Hint, hint. Artemi Panarin. How long are you going to ride on these kids? I mean, there's a couple of kids that they have in the system right now that could step up this year and be contributors, but I mean, there's no guarantees of that right now. I mean, it's just going to be a mess for Chicago down the road. I'm really concerned for Chicago because they're a great franchise. They've got some great talent. However, they're digging themselves a hole with the lack of young talent being retained by the Blackhawks.
I have a feeling like it'll end up being like what happened with Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh was good for a handful of years, but they were not good enough. Mm-hmm. And we saw that. I mean, Pittsburgh was, for a while, they were very talented. I mean, it cost Dan Bylsma his job. It ended up costing the GM his job, and they have a lot of talent. They just weren't able to translate that talent to any sort of tangible victory. So I think that might be happening with Chicago here coming up, where Chicago may be one of the best teams in the West, but they may not be deep enough or good enough to get further than that.
I mean, it's not going to cost Joel Quenneville his job. Joel Quenneville's stuck for life in Chicago. I mean, he's not going anywhere until basically he retires. But it's going
to be Quenneville in the Bowman, Stan Bowman or Scotty Bowman for however long they decide to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just with those guys, it's just, I mean,
they always find a way to make it. They always find a way to make it work. But in the process, they make things a little uncomfortable because you're kind of like, how are you going to pull the rabbit out of the hat this time?
I mean, they've got a really good young guy like Tyler Mott, who just left Michigan to go pursue his professional career with Chicago. He'll probably get some time in the NHL this year. I mean, another guy that could get some NHL time is Ryan Hartman. He was a former first-round pick a couple of years back. I think that those two guys could make their impact in the NHL this year, but then again, they'll play maybe 2-3 years. But then after that, are you going to have the cap space to be able to re-sign them to bridge contracts, long-term contracts? Most likely not, because you're paying.
Again, that's why. That's why I keep saying you've got to make one of those. You got to trade one of those $10 million contracts away. That's your biggest asset. At some point in time, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and just take a deep breath and just go for it and just see deal them to the highest bidder.
And there's going to be those people from Buffalo that will say, trade for Patrick Kane. They're probably listening to this. Trade for Patrick Kane. He's the hometown kid. We want the hometown. No.
I would rather look at. I would rather the Buffalo Sabres as a franchise fold and then light the First Niagara Center on fire than have Patrick Kane be a Buffalo Sabre. Like I would jump off of the Skyway.
Please don't do that.
I'll wear a parachute. It'll hurt only a little. Yeah, I don't. I do not want. Never in my life do I want that to ever happen. I can think of a list of things that I would rather have happen than Patrick Kane become a Buffalo Sabre. I think I would actually. No, I've got one for it. I would rather sexually please myself by sticking broken glass in my pee hole.
Oh.
And have Patrick Kane be a Buffalo Sabre. That's how serious I am about that. I'm as serious as a heart attack, man.
Oh boy.
Anyways, back to the draft. Brighter things. Brighter, happier, less painful things. If the Sabres stay at 8, I know we've discussed it before, but as the draft gets closer, we get a clear idea of who's going to end up where, who's going to do what. If the Sabres stay at 8, who would you be selecting with that 8th overall pick?
It's so tough to tell right now. I mean, I'm working on my mock draft for WGR550.com, and I'm like rubbing my eyes just thinking who in the world is A, going to be available to Buffalo at 8, and B, who would Buffalo even think about taking? Because, I mean, there's a need at scoring wing, and then there's a need for defense. However, any guy that they're taking at 8 is most likely not going to be ready for the NHL this year, maybe not even next year. But, I mean, you got your crop of the top 3 defensemen. Now, if all 3 defensemen get taken before Buffalo at 8, I'd be completely surprised. I'd be thrown for a loop, and I would just be, trying to figure out how the heck that would happen. The only teams that I could see taking a defenseman before Buffalo is, I don't know, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Arizona. Maybe even Calgary. I don't know. But, I mean, Edmonton needs the need for a defenseman. But again, these defensemen, they may not be ready right away to play in the NHL. Maybe they'll get their first 9 games and then they'll have to be sent back to juniors just because they're not ready yet. And that's understandable. But, for Buffalo's sake at this point, it's just best player available. Whoever the best player available is, whether it's defenseman or winger, take them. Even if it's a centerman, take them. I just did a draft prospect profile on WGR550.com of Clayton Keller, who I'm really high on because while he's smaller in size, he's only 5'10" and like 165 pounds, but he has got some incredible offensive skill. He can stick handle the puck real well. He passes the puck. He's probably one of the best passers in the draft this year. And he's just such a smart player. And his scoring abilities have been compared by a couple of times to Patrick Kane, who came out of the U.S. Development League just like Clayton Keller did this year. So if Buffalo takes Clayton Keller, I think it would be a very underrated pick, and I would absolutely love it. But I mean, does Buffalo value him ahead of a guy like one of the 3 defensemen, or ahead of a guy, I don't know, like Alex Nylander or something like that, who could fall to 8 to Buffalo? I don't know. It's difficult to say, but in my opinion, it's just take best player available. And whoever Buffalo sees as best player available at 8, I'd be completely fine taking them.
So that begs the question, though, because if it's a situation where it's hard to predict, if it's hard to predict who's going to be available at number 8, does that make it more likely the Buffalo Sabres would be more inclined to deal the pick? Because, I mean, obviously teams are going to want to move down, teams are going to want to move up, and maybe the Sabres say, hey, well, we're not very pleased with what's available at 8 when we're going to move, or do you think that barring a gigantic trade like an Edmonton deal where they trade the 8th pick or whatever to Edmonton, do you think that they just stand pat and take best player available, or do you think that they will trade out?
I mean, I think if the right deal comes about and Tim Murray can get the most value out of the pick, I think he may trade it, whether it's trade up, trade down. With trading up, it's tricky. I don't want to trade up to like number 5 or number 6. It's just pointless. You either go for one of the top 3 picks, which is going to cost a lot, or you trade with Edmonton and you trade number 4, and then you can draft a guy like Tkachuk. I mean, I think Tkachuk is one of those fringe players that could play a full season in the NHL this year. However, I just think Tkachuk he needs one more year in the OHL or wherever he's going to play to get fully developed and get ready for the NHL level. But, I think that if he trades down, though, he's not going to trade down too far, I wouldn't think. I mean, he's not gonna go from the 8th pick overall to like 21. Because I mean, if you fall out of the top 20, you're running out of talent that could be at NHL ready 2-3 years down the road. I think if he's trading down, he's going to trade down 3-5 spots. I mean, I'm looking at teams like anywhere Montreal to Carolina, any of those teams. If they want to trade up to the 8th pick, select there, and then we trade down, that's fine. I'm not falling past, 14, 15, 16. That's just my opinion. But again, if the deal's right and Tim Murray can get maybe a roster player or something like that for this upcoming season for the 8th pick, that's fine by me. And I know some people are saying that, what if the Sabres trade for a guy like Kevin Shattenkirk and the asking price is the 8th pick and that's it? Okay, maybe then you'd trade the pick and get Shattenkirk or get somebody similar to him. But if I'm Tim Murray, I'm looking to try and keep the pick more than trade it away for a roster player and then not have a pick in the first round.
That would be intriguing for sure. I mean, if Tim Murray was to go out and say he was to go acquire, I mean, Sami Vatanen is the big name we're talking about right now from Anaheim. If he goes out and gets a Sami Vatanen, and then say he goes and trades Bogosian for Eberle, and then goes out and gets Kevin Shattenkirk and gets rid of the first round pick. I mean, I know that it would be neat for the Sabres to pick in the first round because it's in Buffalo. It's a big deal. But I think it would be a bigger deal if Tim Murray just said, screw it, and just did what he wanted to do and made the team leaps and bounds better. Because, I mean, no matter what they decide to do at this point, the team is going to be better. Mm-hmm. And we've learned, as Tim Murray says, trust the process. And that's what I've been doing since day one. And every offseason, he's done nothing to sway me from the course. I mean, he seems to have a very good idea of what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And I know I'm the one that preaches this all the time. Every single time we talk about drafting and trading and free agency, I always preach it because people are so impatient. But you can see how things have gotten better, how the team has improved, how the prospects have improved, how the future, the outlook has improved for the franchise. So at some point in time, I mean, I think next year, I know this year, the the outlook was, be 15, get 15 more points. And they went out and got more than 15 points. They got a ton more points. They're a lot better than we expected. So I don't think there should be any reason why we shouldn't think that the Buffalo Sabres could be an 8 seed next year. I mean, that for me, that's the goal. Like, if the Buffalo Sabres aren't an 8 seed, if they miss the playoffs, I'm going to be disappointed. Because, there's nowhere but up from here.
I mean, it all swings on the type of offseason that they have, too. I mean, if they go out and they sign Steven Stamkos to a mega deal, then you'd expect the Sabres to be a playoff team. But let's say that things don't fall the way the Sabres want it to, and then they end up, they end up maybe signing this guy who's not really a great guy, but, it's just how the market fell for Buffalo and they can't get a trade. Then I'd expect maybe the Sabres to wait one more year and then, draft again high and then that next year go for a playoff spot. But I mean, it's all based on how Tim Murray plays his cards this offseason. If he can play his cards just perfectly, I think that the Sabres are a playoff team. But again,
I think there are enough options out there where even if Stamkos Okposo doesn't happen, they can still go out and make it work for them it may be a thing where, hey, this year we're going to be marginally better. We might be an 8th seed, but then next year there's no doubt about it. We are in the playoffs from opening night on. There's no question. There's a lot of things in play. There's a lot of intangibles that you gotta mix together, and Will the defense mix together right? Will the offense be able to score? Will Evander Kane be a little more lucky? Will Jack Eichel be able to score more goals? Will Sam Reinhart score more goals? Will the bottom 6 be good? Will Will Robin Leonard stay healthy? Will, the backup goaltender, if it's Chad Johnson, will the backup goaltender be able to play 25, 30, a little more than usual, stuff like that. So many questions to be asked, but I mean, looking at the team, if they go out and add some more goals, just go add more goals. I mean, the defense wasn't phenomenal last year, but if the same defense comes back next year and they add more goals to the offense, they could probably win a couple more games.
Mm-hmm.
I just hit a wall there.
I don't know.
My brain is completely just shut off.
I was wondering what the heck was going on.
I just was thinking and then just stopped. Just stopped thinking.
Oh,
I mean, at this
you're right
point,
there.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. The draft, like we said, less than a week away. Free agency is 13 days away.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say. So, the offseason is in full swing. I mean, there's gonna be a lot going on. We're gonna have a lot of coverage up at BLTDsports.com. I might actually call into work on the 24th so I can cover the draft because I took Thursday off and they took my day off away. So I'm gonna just pretend like I can't come to work and not go to work.
There you go.
Or maybe go for a couple hours and then come home, do the draft, do some podcasting. I know later that night, after you're all set, do a quick podcast, talk about the first round, talk about free agency, talk about the draft, trades, all that crazy stuff. Hopefully some good stuff to talk about. If not, we'll have a 5-minute podcast where we just make farting noises into the microphone.
and then just say other weird, crazy stuff that just makes us sound like we're on LSD or something.
We can just do LSD if you want to sound like it. I mean, I'm okay.
I'll pass on the LSD.
Never done it before.
Yeah, me neither, and I don't want to get into it.
We should just Google how to act like you're on LSD and pretend. Anyways, before we get too far off track, I think I'm good here. I mean, my brain is pretty empty at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything really much more to talk about. I mean, we've hit some free agency, we've hit some draft talk, we've hit some trade talk. And I'm just taking one quick look on Twitter to see if anything else has happened, and I do not see anything. So I'm good.
I mean, I want to see pre-draft prediction. Here, give me a bold prediction. Give me a bold pre-draft prediction that we can look back on in a couple of days.
For the Sabres or just overall?
We could say we'll do both. For you, both. For me, I'll just do the Sabres, but you do both.
Okay. All right. For the Sabres, my bold prediction for the Sabres is that they will trade back up into the first round. I think they're going to tool some of their picks later on, and I think that they'll trade back into the first round. Where? I'm not sure. And then my other bold prediction for the NHL draft overall, I think there's going to be I want to center this around trades because I think there's going to be a good number of trades, whether it's involved with picks or just players, sort of like a couple of years ago with the James Neal trade where it was just players and not picks. I'm going to say for my bold prediction for the draft itself, there will be at least 7 trades.
That's fair because again, it's with the expansion draft. There are going to be teams who want to protect a certain player, so they'll go out and get him. Like say, I'll protect player X if you trade him to me, something like that, and they'll make the deal happen. So I think there'll be a lot of trades, but I think my bold prediction for the Sabres is, and this is not very bold, but I don't think they're going to pick at number 8. I just don't think they're going to make that pick. I don't know if they move back or move forward. I hope they don't move forward because, again, like you said, really the value they can get moving forward, they can get where they're at now. But you know what? Maybe I'll amend that as well. I think we're going to see a redux, however the hell you say it, of last year. I think before the Sabres make a pick, we get a major trade.
Before the Sabres make a pick, there'll be a major trade?
Okay. A major Sabres trade.
A major Sabres trade. Okay. So,
Because remember
they'll
last
be,
year, obviously, right before the draft, they acquired Ryan O'Reilly officially. I think we're gonna get a trade like that again before. If it'll be something where the Buffalo Sabres will take the eyes off of the Toronto Maple Leafs and Austin Matthews, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and honestly, I think if the Sabres trade down, again, no further than 13. I mean, so you're going to try and pick a trade with Montreal, Colorado, New Jersey, Ottawa, or Carolina.
Yeah, so I take that back, what I said.
With
I take the 8th thing back. They'll probably pick at 8 then if that's the case. I didn't think about it like that.
Well, I mean, you could try and trade with Colorado, maybe get somebody, I don't know, Matt Duchene.
Duchene.
But then again,
we're not going to trade Tyson Barrie, but we'll take the shot.
Yeah, but I mean, Matt Duchene is the type of player where it's just like, all right, well, if you want Matt Duchene, then you're giving us the 8th pick and something else, and you're just getting Matt Duchene.
I mean, they do have a lot of second-round picks,
3rd-round picks too. They have 1 second and 4 thirds.
That's what I mean. 4 thirds. I don't know why I said seconds. 4 thirds.
They do have 2 second-rounders next year though, and 2 third-rounders next year.
This is why I keep you around, because I don't remember anything.
Trade some of your future currency away.
Why not? You can't keep them all.
Yeah.
And you die. It's like when you die, you can't take the money with you. When you die,
and if you really think you're a playoff team next year, really, what are those picks really going to matter to you?
Exactly. I think the Sabres go all in. I mean, as much as they can. I mean, they're not going to go out and win the Stanley Cup next year, but they might surprise some people. If they get the talent we think they're going to pick up, they could surprise some people. Yeah,
and honestly, with my prediction with the Sabres trading back into the first round, I could see. I don't know. I could see a team sort of like Winnipeg. They've already got the second pick with Line A, and I think they have 22 from Chicago. I think I could probably see them, kind of floating that out there, like, hey, I've got a first round pick if anybody wants it, or maybe even late first round where a team like Tampa Bay, they've traded away their first round pick I think the past 2 years now. Boston's got another first round pick, and even Toronto's got another first round pick. Maybe those teams could float those out there saying, anybody want to move up? We'll take an offer here for any of these picks. And I think that Buffalo would most likely be in there and say, hey, what do you want?
That's fair. Well, hey, either way, you'll be there at the draft doing.
I will not be at the draft. I will be at WGR working.
You'll be doing your in real life job.
Yes.
Either way, that actually probably works out better for us, because that way when it's over, we can podcast. But we will podcast next week to discuss the first round of the draft. Hopefully some big moves to talk about. Brayton, you can follow him at BJ Wilson WGR. You can follow me at Wolfe BLTD. We are better live than dead, and you certainly are not. This has been the BLTD Extracast, number 69, coined by Brayton, edition 420. And we will be back. Same time, same place next week, talking drafts. You can follow everything, BLTDsports.com, at BLTD Sports on Twitter, Facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. For Brayton, again, I'm Ryan. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you sticking around, listening to us ramble about the Sabres, and sticking glass into my pee hole. Bye.